Listen up, I'm about to get dope.
What's going on? It's time for another episode of Too Hard for the Radio, transmitting from the future free state of Greater Idaho. I am the one-armed madman, and back with me today from the Badlands of Southern Montana, it's Nolan 5150. What's up, man?
Hey, dude. It's
been a while.
Yeah. We got a couple bye weeks there. I need some advice. I got selected for jury duty. How the hell do I get out of this?
Oh, this is easy, actually. So there's a couple fun things that you can do. First off, what you do is you just say, hey, I'm an anarchist, and unless there's clear evidence of a crime, I refuse to prosecute.
All right. Yep. I knew.
And
you
that
were the
could
guy.
go either way. That could go either way. One juror's, the prosecutor's going to go, no. But you actually, in this situation, you have a chance to make like a huge difference in somebody's life. If they're, if the state's coming down on them and maybe some guy got a DUI and didn't even get to blow in the gun. Like weird shit happens all the time with the justice system, where how you've been on the injustice system. You've been on the ass end of it before. So I've never signed up to vote or anything like that. And I've gotten jury duty before, not here, but I've just never gone and done it. But if I was going to do it now, I'd just say, yeah, look, man, I'm an anarchist and I will not rule for the state. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, unless you've got video of this guy murdering somebody, sorry.
Dude,
like if we've got a drug crime or a possession of a firearm by a felon, like, see ya. Like, I'm not, no. Like, I abide by the Constitution, the rules that you should follow, and I'm gonna sit here and make sure you do.
Yep. Yeah, dude. I knew you were the right guy to ask that, because I was struggling with what I was gonna say, and I don't know. I really got to read the paper a little bit more and see if I can just write that on the paper, and then
you might be able to.
And honestly, if I'm being honest,
that's all you have to do is just say, I'm an anarchist and I refuse to prosecute. Sorry. What are they going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like
I know that
no
happened with Michael Malice once, where he had to go and do that, and he said that, and they put him on the jury, and he was able to convince the jury that what they were doing to this guy was wrong, and that he shouldn't be prosecuted. And so I don't remember what the case was about, but he said, they listened to the whole thing and they went in there, and it was clear that the jury was going to find him guilty. And he said he spent 5 minutes talking about the law and the Constitution and what's right and what's wrong. And pretty soon they're like, oh yeah, this is ridiculous. Let's get it. We're out of here. Let's go have lunch.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just takes somebody to tell you that what's happening in front of you isn't right. And you can go, hey, look, this guy, the prosecutor, the judge, all of these guys work together to get convictions. This guy's job is to get as many convictions as he possibly can so he can get a judgeship one day. He wants that job, And if there's anything you can do to help somebody in a situation where they need it, I would do it. I mean, especially for me, right now, if I got called into jury duty, maybe it'd be interesting. I don't have anything to do. You've got a job, but also you get paid while you're there. So
yeah, but I'm sure it's not gonna. And obviously this is not California. I'm pretty sure California now, they if you get selected for jury duty, I think the company has to compensate the rest of what your regular salary would be. I could totally be wrong with that, but
I thought it was like that everywhere.
I'm not sure. That's another thing I need to ask.
Maybe.
I need to find that out tomorrow, because.
But that'd be your best bet, because either way, you're being honest. You can just say, hey, look, this is how I believe. This is what's going to happen. If you showed me a picture, or a video of somebody murdering somebody, then that's one thing. But if we're just talking about hassling some fucking dude over a DUI, over pirate shit, some fucking non-victimless crime, where
selling a little bit of crack,
just shaking you down for it. Yeah, just selling a little bit of drugs, whatever, however it is, it shouldn't happen. And dude, I've been there. I've had my last time I went to jail. This is fucking wild. So I went into the courtroom, and my mother was there, and the judge almost had to discontinue because there was like a conflict. My mom works for the fucking courthouse.
Yeah.
So when she gets done, like giving me my sentence, I got 60 days, half time, I think, or maybe it was 90 days, 2/3 time. I ended up having to do a month or two. She goes to my mom and I know this because my mom's told me, she goes, I didn't know what to do. I had to give him some time, but I gave him as little a time as I possibly could,
Yeah.
And for me, great, it worked out. And in that situation, like we were actually looking for more time because I was trying to figure out like a program or something like that. So more time wouldn't have been the end of the world, actually. But
you're like, I'm sorry, sorry, Your Honor. Can I request some
shit
more
like
time?
that works. And it goes the other way too. If my mom was sitting in there a victim, imagine how she would have felt about me, not her son. Hey, this guy broke into my house and stole some shit from me. If she's sitting there and she knows the victim of this crime, you're automatically going to feel like you need to do something about it. And you're just going to give the harshest penalty possible because that person did something to your friend.
Yep.
Yep.
Conflict.
And you don't know how this shit works out. Like maybe the officer that arrests the guy for whatever in there, maybe there's some personal thing. There was always that question mark about George Floyd and the guy that murdered him, whether they had a personal thing going on because they worked at the same club or something like that. Huh. And you don't know.
Yeah. You never know that shit. But yeah, I was pretty much in the same boat as you as far as I'd been selected a few times back in California, and every time I got a notice, I just did not respond to anything. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like they take it a little more serious here in Montana. I don't know why, but they really followed up with it.
Because they have a state to run.
Yeah.
They have a state to run. This is not California where things just run themselves into the ground. Right. Like they're actually trying to do some work here. So I could see that being the case. So while we're on the subject of like local governments, the concrete batch plant is done. Last night was the final meeting. They got another meeting, and it was something. For a while there, I didn't think it was going to go well. Like the city council was asking a bunch of questions to the company. What is this? How about this? Why didn't you do this study that you were supposed to do? And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, they had a chance to ask these questions already. Like, why are they even asking these questions? This should be a formality to just end this and be done with. Like, I don't know what's going on with all the questions. So I was starting to get nervous. Fuck, man. And you're listening to these people describe all this shit, and it's just like, oh, God, I don't want this thing by my house,
Yeah.
And at one point, so like the community got to come up and speak, and the company did the same thing, gaslighting us into thinking that we're fucking crazy for not wanting them in our backyard, which is just so annoying. Like I should have gone. I didn't feel like it because I was sick, but it was just so annoying to me that they're showing up and just continually telling us how wrong we are to not want them in our neighborhood. And it just drives me nuts. So anyways, this woman goes up that worked at the airport, and she did her homework, and she's just starts, this and that, and the whole airport thing. And it was kind of the same thing that they were talking about last time. I didn't really notice anything different. And at one point they go, wait, hold on a second. And they ask her a question, and she goes, well, it would be like, and she starts listing, giving the answer. And they go over to like their counsel, their lawyer, and they go, is she right about that? And the lawyer like, yeah, she's right. That's wrong. That's how it goes. And so then they start asking her some more questions. They ask about funding for the airport. And this is interesting. I didn't know this, but like 85% of our airport terminals, runways they're all paid for by the FAA. So like 85% to 90% of our runway here has been paid for through federal grants through the lifetime of the airport. Yeah, so that's where all our money's going. And she said that one of the stipulations for securing these grants is maintaining the area to the perimeter of the airfield.
Okay.
And if you don't do that, you are eligible, the city is eligible to have to repay all those grants back.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, so she's
Yeah.
saying the
Yeah.
cement, the concrete, it was a concrete plant or something, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's
if
within
if the feds come in and decide that this is if this is NG, then you got to give us who knows how many millions of dollars.
Here's a fucking bill.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes from the city. So you saw a lot of they had perked up real quick on that one. At that point, I was like, oh, good. It's over. Like as soon as they heard that, and they go to this council again. They go, is she right about that? And they're like, yeah, she's right. And I was just like, sweet, it's over. I knew it was over at that point.
Checkmate.
Man. Yeah, I was pumped. And, I was sitting out in my hot tub last night, and as I'm like watching this on the internet, I'm thinking about like how loud this thing's going to be. And it runs 24/7 because they are allowed to run 24/7. And I'm thinking to myself, like, man, like one of the nicest parts of my day is sitting out in the hot tub at night when it's quiet around here.
Breathing
like, it's
fresh
quiet
air
right now. There's no, just breathing some fresh air in the nice quiet. And the thought of having to listen to them crushing concrete all night was it was a crushing defeat. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what do I do? Do I sell my house? Like,
Yeah. What
am my property values going to tank as
It's
soon as
gonna
this
drop,
place is
yeah.
built?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know what to do at that point. It was the first time that I actually thought about it being a possibility, and was like, this is not good. So as I'm sitting out there in the hot tub last night, enjoying peace and quiet, it was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my life. I'm looking in the direction of exactly where that plant is going to be. And this massive, I'm talking the biggest I've ever seen shooting star starts falling down towards the airport, and it's bright green, like a monster can. It starts falling. I lose it behind a tree, and I'm like, oh, I'm like yelling because this thing's just incredible. And it goes through the tree, out, like keeps going, and starts to break up, and is just falling out of the sky, and then falls down like below the horizon. And I thought the thing hit. I think it hit. I think wherever it hit. Like it went down below horizon. And I was waiting to hear a noise. It's like, holy shit. But man, talk about just unbelievable. Like I've never seen anything like it before. I didn't think that a star could even look like that.
Yeah.
And I went on the internet and was looking for, nobody caught a picture of it, obviously. It's nothing, nowhere to be found. And I found some like examples of them on the internet, and nothing like the one I saw. It as it was falling down, it just falls apart and spreads like across the whole, just unreal. I couldn't freaking believe it. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. One of the other things that I can think of that was amazing is one night when I was living in Maui. I don't know why I went outside. I went outside for something. And I was still living with my aunt. And I go up and I start looking around, and there's a full moon that night, and there's like, a rainforest behind me. And there's kind of like water in between the moon. And there's just this massive rainbow going across the entire sky at like 1:00 in the morning.
Oh,
It
wow.
was just freaking cool as shit. Yeah. Never
That's
seen
wild.
anything like that before.
Yeah.
either. Yeah. Anyways, it was fucking cool. So we had what's going on in Black Hollywood, huh? we got Cat Williams, who's on another planet, and now we got Terrence Howard. I mean, how about that podcast? That was incredible, right?
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. It was so
Dude,
funny because like
neither.
I'm looking at YouTube, and the clip comes up, and it's like Terrence Howard, and I go, the actor?
Yeah.
It's always like, he has actors on for some time, some this and that, and I go, that's weird. I don't know anything about Terrence Howard. And then I look at the subject of the video, and I'm like, holy, wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
This is the guy that's on fucking Empire. He should be talking about hip hop,
Yeah.
not fucking astrophysics. And oh man, I couldn't have been happier with that podcast. That was incredible.
Yeah. I'll tell you this. My favorite Terrence Howard movie for sure is Hustle and Flow. Drug dealing pimp turns
I've never seen it.
for real. Yeah, it's fucking good.
Yeah,
man.
no, I've never seen it. I was gonna say maybe I'll watch that tonight, but I was gonna watch Dune 2 tonight.
Oh,
So maybe I'll have to get to Hustle and Flow later. But now I kind of feel like I should watch the guy's movies a little bit more.
yeah.
Interesting though. Like it's unfortunately like for a lot of people that's going to be a very jarring interview.
Yeah.
Because he's all over the place. He's clearly smart. Like when
Yes.
he's doing math and shit, you can tell that he is smart. Like he's a smart guy and he sees the world in a different way than most people.
Yeah.
Which I'm always a fan of that. You know, like
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
I see the world in a different way than most people. And I think that some people have ways of it. When, you know, when he's talking about those negative spaces between circles, he's picturing that in a completely different way than we are. You know, he's thinking turbulence and pressure and these different, you know, funnels essentially, which in a nutshell, he's talking about the electric universe theory, which I don't know if you may have heard that theory like on a Sam Tripoli episode or something like that. But that's
Not
kind
really.
of where he was going with it. And
So that
we'll,
has
okay,
go. Yeah.
go ahead. No, sorry, go ahead.
No,
What were you
I was
say?
gonna ask a question about that, but if we're gonna get into it a little bit more, I'll
Yeah,
try
we'll
to
get
say-
into it a little bit, and I'll kind of explain a little bit more about it. This is a rabbit hole I've gone down. Right off the bat, I'll just say that I am not a subscriber to the electric universe theory. I'm not a subscriber to the heliocentric model either, though. I think that both of them probably are right and wrong about a lot of things.
Yeah.
The thing that really sets me off with the electric universe theory is this kind of mythology that's surrounding it, and we'll get into that a little bit later. We'll kind of go into these videos first and watch that, but the mythology aspect of it is very fantastic. It's you know, it's a fucking sci-fi novel. It's not something that you would really subscribe to, like a theory of everything or a theory of the universe. It kind of just doesn't really fit. I think that they would do themselves a service by divorcing the theory from the mythology, but they seem to be like tied in hand. So that being said, we'll listen to this first video. This was my favorite part of the podcast. I should have asked you if there was any parts that you wanted me to like clip or something like that, because
Yeah.
I'm sure you found other parts more interesting than I did, and vice versa, you know, like something like that. There was one point, dude, at the end where it was so funny. Rogan's like, all right, man, well, we've been here for like 3 hours. He's like, but dude, we didn't get into any of my shit yet. It was funny. It's interesting. Yeah, let's watch this video. Let me make sure I'm gonna turn this on. I'm gonna try and do the videos. I didn't do them last time. I got all fucked up and forgot to do the thing, and I'm gonna see if I can let it go the old way, and hopefully I can make it work this time. All right, here's the first clip.
And there's no gravity whatsoever in this model. There's no center attractor.
Oh,
So it's
I guess
just
I should.
vortexes.
I guess I should kind of preface it. This is where they're this guy that they're talking with, one of his science guys, and we'll kind of get into this here in a second, but he's just showing a model. If you're listening, this is just a computer model, and it's going to do some cool shit.
And there's no gravity whatsoever in this model. There's no center attractor. So it's just vortexes and two magnetic fields, a north and a south polarity, and one harmonic resonance, which is emanating a vibration in the field in this region here where these vortexes are pointed. So it kind of just oscillates to give it a little bit of randomness in motion so that the particles will kind of interact and bounce around like smoke or water, waves and water. And then when I hit play, it does it all by itself using physics simulations. So there's no animations.
And we have to
At
just
all
take
in
his
this
word
model.
for it.
Yeah.
And when
That
I
this
play
is a
it,
simulation and not an animation.
this is what pops out.
Like maybe some
Holy
people
fuck.
can tell the difference, but to us,
Wow.
who
And
knows,
then when
right?
I look down at the
Yeah,
top,
what's the difference?
it makes the actual hexagon that NASA has observed on the top of Saturn without any gravity.
And this is interesting. If this
And
is
you'll
a
see
true
that you get a
simulation, like
surface of
very
the sphere on
cool.
the inside
Yeah.
with the heavier particles.
Took a very
the colors-
smart person to do.
Are you basically saying, is this saying that you guys can recreate planets?
Yes, this is a particle simulation of the physics involved in making up the planet Saturn.
Wow.
Include like all the So the heavier particles are creating the red and
All right. So this is we've kind of delved into this in previous episodes. Remember when we were digging into the ATIP stuff? You got all these rich people who are coming together with the government to, study UFOs and shit like that. I think this is another one of those guys. You remember the guy that Brandon Fugel was working with? It was creating anti-gravity.
Yeah.
There's these guys who are kind of into this alternative energy sphere, and they're always looking for, I think, their next fucking mark, essentially. Who can I sell this story to? Who can I get jacked up on this that's going to give me enough money to do the research that I want to do? So what I think is going on in this video is this is a here's what I'm doing with your money video. So he's sitting down on the table with his wife and, hey, look, this is what he's doing with the money we've been giving to them, essentially, right? Because you've got to justify this. He's got a black wife, She's got fucking weaves and shit that she needs to be buying. You giving this fucking white boy money to be playing around with Saturn and shit? You got to get some money out, some return on investment here. So let's listen to how smart his wife is.
Is this saying that you guys can recreate planets?
yes, this is a particle simulation of the physics involved in making up the planet Saturn.
Wow.
Include like all the So the heavier particles are creating the red and the green here where the hexagon is, and those are the heavier ones creating the shell of the planet, and then the outside are lighter particles that are a fluid that's creating the counter rotation of the atmosphere of Saturn like we observe scientifically. And the red ones in the middle here are where the magnetic field is strongly polarized at the north and south poles, which gives you aurora borealis.
I have a question. Now, does this mean that you would be able to control what kind of atmosphere
She thinks they're building
the planet
planets.
has as well? Like you can change that? Because you can create it, that means you can change it.
We now have a system by which you can, it's the arrangement of linchpins and the axis on which they are spinning in relation to each other, and or vibrating. By doing that, we can create a condition, any condition that we want.
So you can have human life here, is what you're saying.
So you can have human life here, is what you're
If
saying.
you were if you're able to,
This broad thinks they're building planets. Imagine what he had to tell her to sell this check.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't believe that when I was listening to that, because right away I knew exactly what was going on, and I could hear her. She'd go, "Well, if you can change it, then you can change it.
If you can build it, you
It's
can
like,
change it, right? That's what.
Yeah, and it's like, come on, lady, they're building a simulation on a computer. She thinks they're going to be selling real estate on Saturn next year.
Yeah. So what that was supposedly showing was within the known realm of physics with the specified vortexes or something that he said, and then basically it's everything about what makes Saturn, where Saturn is, and how Saturn is without gravity, without the theory of gravity.
Yeah,
but
it's
then
electrical
it
fields.
creates it the same way. So it's they're trying to disprove the fact that gravity exists.
Exactly. So they're saying that this was essentially formed from the outside in, not the inside out, where the standard model is gravity coalesces and everything falls in on it because that's what gravity does.
Yeah.
Where this, and we'll kind of get into it a little bit more in the next video, because I can kind of explain a little bit more based on that. But everything in this theory revolves around vortices, essentially. So you've got ionized gases, you've got different charged particles that are going to react in certain ways depending on the fields that they're under. The fields are going to kind of and they assemble themselves in a way. So you get these vortices, and as they're spinning towards each other, they're creating different currents in different situations where different particles are going to start coming together, not falling together because of gravity, more of like
an attraction
coming together from charges, electric and magnetic charges. So like when you rub a balloon on your hair and you stick it up, the hair goes with the balloon, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? Let's continue with this video, and then we'll move on to some of the nuts and bolts.
Change and alter these external fields and understand, like, at least this would give us a method of studying it in such a way that we now understand that it's external pressures being applied from the outside in, not the standard model where you have internal fission reaction in a nuclear in a planet with magnetic fields from iron cores, etc., going outward. Right? That's all kind of ego based at the center. This is pretty solid evidence.
And Joe's blown away right now because he doesn't know anything about the electric universe.
So the entire universe is actually
he thinks that this is novel
from the outside in, from space itself, the pressures.
Turning wave.
You can stop it. Now, so
go to that image.
Like if you picture dropping a pebble into a pond or a pool, everything expands in these longitudinal waves,
right?
Perfect spheres, unless there's something else in there. But when it hits the edge, it all starts bouncing its way back. And when these returning waves meet expanding waves, that's when we get our first geometry. So this is the proof that the universe is not infinite, but finite. Because you could not have shape without the returning waves, and the waves would not return unless it was bouncing off of the edge of something.
Look how strange that is.
Bingo.
Look how strange that hexagon on the top of Saturn is. Mm-hmm. Or that's Saturn, right?
Yep, and then we don't even. And
that is so crazy.
He explains exactly how he built it, all the angles of incidence, all the pressure systems that he used. All of that is so it can be a repeated experiment. But they've ignored this. This is in the beginning of my book. You go to my book, that's the first page on there. Before you even open it up, I've got this, and we rebuilt the Milky Way galaxy the same way, and it predicts the star arrangement better than NASA does. And this is without dark matter. This is without dark energy. This is without the standard model. So
it's dark.
All right. So that's interesting to me. I don't know necessarily about it proving that the universe is finite. I mean, you could have coalescing waves from different sources. You throw a rock on one end of the pool and one on the other pool, you're going to get a coalescing wave, and you're going to get interference patterns that way.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I haven't looked into that much of it. What I do find interesting is that, and I've heard from other sources, that this models the universe better than like an Einstein modeled universe, essentially. And that's interesting. I do think that dark matter and dark energy are bullshit. I think those are complete. All they are, and this is a good way for people to look at dark matter and dark energy. All they are is a way for us to express our ignorance. So when we first started learning about algebra, and they explained to you X is not an X, it's not a letter at all. All it is a potential number, any potential number. You just don't know what it is yet. It's just a way for you to express that you don't know what belongs there. And that's all dark energy and dark matter is, hey, we have these equations that have missing sections in them. We don't know how this equation does what it does because this missing portion of it. That's it. All it is just a way for us to say, we have no idea. And they make it out to be this. The thought of matter having no physical form just is ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Like, there's matter, but you can't see it. You can't interact with it. It's going through you all the time. I do not find that to be a compelling argument. I think that this is something along the lines of what these guys are saying is these people fucked up somewhere. Like, I don't know that it's everywhere, but something along the way got fucked up, and they're going down the wrong path. That was one of the most poignant things that he said throughout there is they've been going down the wrong path for 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
And I think that's a definite possibility. How else do we have these, these craft that are doing what they're doing? Like, those craft are doing something that are out there. They're doing something that our physics cannot explain. Is that because our physics is wrong, or because these, vehicles don't actually exist? It could be either way, really. But I think that our physics is clearly going to be wrong. The things that they've been wrong about just in our lifetimes. The next video that we're going to watch, I cut out a portion of it, but she starts off with the 4 stages of matter. When we were in school, there was only 3 stages of matter. Plasma didn't get added until after we were gone. Like, I remember learning about plasma being the 4th stage of matter when I was in college. Going, well, that's not what we learned in school. And it wasn't in college. It was line school when I finally learned it, 'Cause you get a better, I think that Northwest Line College does a better electrical theory class than you'll get at the college that I went to, for sure. I've talked to electrical engineers on this show who don't understand electricity as good as I do in certain aspects. They understand what they're doing, but how it works, the way it operates, how our system works, they're kind of ignorant to in a lot of ways most of the time. They kind of, it's like water through a hose, which is just so fucking wrong. It's not even close.
That's
energy flows
like so basic
in fields around the wires. There's nothing. Yeah, like it's just
like
dumb.
if you want to boil it down to its single cell form,
dumbest
sure,
form.
Okay, yeah.
And it's still wrong. If anything, it's like a chain moving through it, but it still doesn't capture it because there's nothing actually moving in it. Like it's energy around a wire. So if you had a superconductor that had 0 resistance and you made it a quarter light second long, you put a switch right here in the middle. You put a quarter light second that way, a quarter light second that way, 1 inch this way, and then another quarter light second or half light second, between the both of them to connect the circuit. You would think that would take a full second to light up when you throw that switch. It's got to go. If it was that way, if it was water through a hose, you would have to go all the way and it'd take a second. It doesn't. It happens almost instantly, even though it's an entire light second, which is, 186,000 miles. It happens instantly because the energy is not flowing through the wire. It's flowing
there.
around the wire. And those 2 wires are so close to each other that the fields are actually on top of each other. So it seems like that should break causality, but it doesn't. It's just one of those weird things about the first thing they teach us in line school is electricity is FM, which means fucking magic. Electricity, if you've got any questions, just revert to electricity is fucking magic, and that should answer your question.
Yeah, I like that. Real quick.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking about our physics being wrong. I can't. Yeah, some to the effect you were saying, probably it is wrong. Well, you also, in my opinion,
if the vehicle exists, then something is wrong, right?
Yes. So you also have to consider the fact that maybe it is known, and this is just the propaganda that's being fed to the public because either the government or whoever's in charge doesn't think that the public could handle the acceptance of what the truth is of how shit actually works, or they're just trying to keep it for themselves because we're just a farm planet that they come and collect something out of our atmosphere or our
I don't buy that one. I don't like that. I don't like that theory because there's so much easy gold in the universe.
You would think so, but I mean, they always tell us
I mean,
that
it's
we're special,
everywhere.
right?
Like you could find if you have the energy, if you have the smarts, if you have the ability to travel the stars, why would you waste your time enslaving monkeys and jacking with their DNA and all of that crap when you could just make a probe to go mine it for you?
Ooh, that's
like
okay.
If you've got the tech to do one, you have the tech to do the other.
Yeah.
So it just seems to like a horrible Battlestar. What is that movie? Battlestar Earth. It just seems like a tremendous waste of time and resources to me.
Yeah, for sure.
If I was doing it right now, if we had that power to go to another planet and that we needed gold, if we needed gold for our atmosphere, and the choices were whatever's around in your home system or go to the nearest system with monkeys, like that's a no-brainer, right? You scavenge whatever you've got in your home system, then you go to the next system, and the next system, who knows how many systems you've got to go to before you can find monkeys capable of mining.
So that's
the way I look at it anyways.
That ties into what I probably would have had you use as a clip I wanted to hear that I liked out of the Terrence Howard interview.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about where he said that humanoids cropped up on that other planet.
So I maybe, but it was he explained the whole thing how like even Saturn is gonna basically shit out a moon, and that we're actually being pushed away from the sun, and that billions of years ago
that's a weird one to me,
on
like,
Earth, on Mars. But I don't know. It's just it's fun. It's fun stuff to think about if you don't try to take it too fucking serious.
Let's watch this video, and then we'll talk about the mythology a little bit because that kind of fits into what he was saying.
Is matter in any state?
Oh, so this is I just found this woman that made a video about the electric universe. I thought she did a pretty good 3-minute breakdown. So let's watch it.
Is matter in any state where the atoms are either missing an electron or have an extra one, making them either a negative or positive electrical charge.
Talking about plasma.
Any charged atom, either positive or negative, or a free-floating electron is called an ion. Space, contrary to popular belief, is not empty. All that room between the stars and planets and even galaxies that we can see is full of plasma, a big soup of ions. These ions are always seeking a neutral state, so we'll seek out anything that it can get its hands on to fill that unbalanced electron state. So they move, and that movement creates an electromagnetic field. That electromagnetic field then shapes how the ions move both inside and outside of the field, attracting more ions. As the number of ions grows,
here's where it goes FM.
So does the electromagnetic field around them, eventually causing the ions to self-organize into ropes called Birkeland currents, where the moving ions create an electrical current. And it's these current ropes, these Birkeland currents, that are responsible for the magic of an electric universe. So imagine the soup of ions that over time starts organizing and moving through the universe. There's no shortage of ions around to make it grow. So they do. And eventually, two currents collide.
So here's
where they collide, a spinning disk called a plasmoid forms. Now keep in mind that
so what he was talking about with those linchpins in that simulation is a different of these swirling plasmoids in different configurations. And if you configure them in the right way, you get a Saturn built around it. But it just starts out with these self-organizing ions and plasma storms, essentially. And to me, this makes a lot of sense. Like the way electricity operates, it's just a different thing than gravity. It's just, it seems like it has purpose. When you're working with electricity, when you're watching what it does, when you see an arc do something crazy, you go, man, there's some thought behind that shit. And I don't think electricity's alive. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when you watch it, it appears to be doing things with purpose.
Yeah. And I get,
Another ingredient.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's kind of, in my mind, the only way that it's able to be harnessed in any capacity really is like the attraction, it seems to be extremely volatile and unpredictable, but at the same time you can kind of just like be like, herding butterflies or something like that. You're like, go this way.
Yeah. So this was actually something that got me, this was back when I went on Sam's show the first time. One of the things that I said was that we don't really understand electricity. We're very good at using it, but we don't really understand how it works.
Yeah.
Like we have, this framework of how to use it. It does this, it does that, but the underlying characteristics of it, like when we learned about the atom in school, it was the solar system model, right?
Yeah.
It's you got your circle, and then your electrons are moving around in an orbit. That's not true at all. What is true is there's what do they call it? The wave field. So that electron is never in one spot. It's like our X in the equation. It's there, but it's somewhere in that potential field, and it's everywhere at once and nowhere at once. So it's one of these weird, you start going down into quantum mechanics and everything just falls apart. So one of the comments was, oh, he doesn't understand electricity, therefore nobody does. And it's like, no, really, like we don't. Tesla kind of figured out how to mess with it. And we've just been doing that for the last 80 years, just messing with it. Hey, this is something that we can harness and we can use very easily and do great things with. But ask us to really explain what's going on, and you can't. It all falls apart.
I got nothing.
That's, Einstein's whole thing was spooky action at a distance. It doesn't make sense. It does weird fucking things. Electrons disappear. There's electron tunneling, where an electron can literally tunnel through empty space and appear somewhere else. With your double slit experiment, where light has to go back in time and change itself from its source when it's observed. Just weird shit. And another thing that he brought up on the podcast that is undoubtedly true is that electricity, the electromagnetic force, is, I wrote this down, 10 to the 39 times stronger than gravity.
Yeah. I remember that.
How can you, and he illustrated that by saying the dust from the ground will coalesce up to the balloon rather than fall back down to the heavy earth, which makes a lot of sense. So why is it that the lowest, the weakest of not the weakest, the weak field's weaker, but the second weakest natural force is the one that is responsible for everything that we see? That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? When you've got something that's so much stronger.
Yeah.
In the ion soup is cosmic dust, and this dust is also sometimes charged. So this spinning plasmoid creates a super powerful whirlpool of energy that then attracts any charged cosmic dust and matter like a moth to the flame, and a galaxy is born. But the creation doesn't stop there. There are always more currents branching out, like the lightning bolt you see in a storm. Those smaller branches then attract some of the material collected by the previous galaxy creating plasmoid and use it to create stars, and then even further down, planets. And the current strings keep going in a line, forming cosmic structures along the way, like when you have multiple outlets in your house all on the same circuit. So you can think of the stars as Christmas tree lights, where at night you can see the lights but not the wires connecting them. Those twisted wires are the Birkeland currents, which actually twist around themselves like the Christmas tree lights, connecting everything in the universe together.
That makes a lot more sense to me than a bunch of rocks coalesced and then, got stuck together and now they push each other apart and we can't figure out why. It's just, oops. It makes so much more sense to me that the universe would be based on electrical principles rather than gravitational ones. It just seems like it makes more sense.
Yeah.
And now to the mythology. So I know you've heard aspects of this on Sam's show before, where they talk about Saturn. So this goes back to what they call the golden age of man, which was our original system was not the system that we see today, that the stars that our ancestors saw were different, and that it was these 4 planets. Let's see, it would have been Jupiter, Saturn, Venus, then Mars, then Earth. We're all lined up at one point, and they were all lined up at our North Star. So when you looked up to the north, you would see all of these planets backing up against each other. And at some point, all of these big currents that hold everything together. And, one of the guys that I watch a lot that does these, he's called The Suspicious Observer. You should watch his YouTube show. He does space weather, where he's always talking about solar flares and shit like that. He's always talking about these big galactic currents that connect everything together. And, our great year, the precession of the equinox, that's tied to other great years and other things. And it's all tied together through these massive electromagnetic fields that span the entire universe, essentially. So the theory was, at some point, Mars and Earth started getting wonky, and there was these big charged particles, big charged streams of materials that were kind of connecting the planets, and you were getting these massive plasma discharges that were going like planet to planet. So when you see the man carved on the side of the rocks, that he's got his arms up and his legs out, they say that those are actually plasma discharges. And you can see, like, when they put them next to it, should have sent you the picture. I had one. I was going to put it up right now, but I forgot. Anyways, a lot of these plasma discharges that we've seen in labs now look a lot like cave drawings. The problem is that just seems like, let's say that what you were saying earlier, that maybe these people do know what the actual universe is all about, and the people that we see are just wrong, right? They just don't get it. Are they gonna be? It seems like if something like that did happen, and there is evidence that it happened on Mars, like Valles Marineris, the big trench, geological processes did not make that trench. There's other things on Mars that like earthbound geologic processes did not create. And the theory behind this is that they were these massive plasma discharges that essentially destroyed the face of this planet. And there was a great, this woman went into it a little further. I cut it all out because it was too long, but there's like whole fields in Mars where there's just boulders and debris everywhere. Like there was some massive explosion somewhere and it just all got piled along the surface. So I don't know. So the thought is like, if that was really the case, would all of these smart people who are just apparently wrong about the universe altogether, could they get it that wrong by accident? you know, because that seems like something that there would just be so much evidence to that you couldn't be able to cover it up. I don't know.
Yeah,
Hard to
well,
say,
I mean,
right?
you
Like,
yeah,
it's a weird thing.
You say that, but then I mean, look at how fucking hard people have a time deciding between Republican and Democrat.
Yeah,
and they believe whatever the fuck the news outlet they subscribe to.
Well, like, I'm not putting this on normal people. I can forgive normal people for thinking that, like, Einstein was correct and things like that. But I'm thinking of Neil deGrasse Tyson in this instance.
Okay.
Like, he's smart enough that you would think if something like that did happen, he would say, well, wait, look at all the evidence for this shit.
Okay.
Or he's lying.
Yeah.
You know, and he does know. Like, I don't
know.
we really need one of these vehicles. We need a UFO. Yeah. Because once we've got a UFO, then you can say, hey, look, this works. For whatever reason, it works, and you say it can't. So, like, let's figure this out now. And I think that's kind of like Eric Weinstein's approach to this is like, something's happening, we can see it happening, and the math doesn't back it up. So something's got to be wrong with the math at this point. I think that's kind of where he resides. Like, I know you've heard him on Rogan before, and I think he kind of is in this camp where I don't think he would say that Terrence Howard is right. I was, when he was talking about Neil deGrasse Tyson, I was thinking, man, get this guy with Eric Weinstein. Like, Eric will talk to him.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
And maybe there is something. Like, his idea for the drones, fucking cool. Yeah. The way they hook up and do, like, that's a great idea. I don't care what kind of wacky thoughts you have about the universe. If you can build that, that's great. Like, that could do a lot of great things for people, you know? Imagine, like, if you live in an African country and you want a brand new port, how much it would cost to have to build all those cranes and shit when you could just buy drones.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there's a lot of wackiness to this theory, and I don't buy it fully. But I think that there's something there. Yeah. And I think that, like, people shouldn't be afraid to look at that and go,
that's
these
the big
people
thing.
who are wrong are constantly wrong about everything. Like you said, who are just wrong about everything and just constantly are hand waving off all the things they're wrong about. Do we really think that they're right about the universe? I don't.
Right? You got to be extra.
I don't think
you got to
so
be
at all.
Extra type of special to think that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Like, all of this is bullshit, but this they got 100% right.
Yeah. The universe and everything. It's just to me it's the most ridiculous thing for somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson to laugh at him when it's like, you're not doing anything. What are you doing for people? Being smug on the internet and telling people they're wrong about everything?
Yeah, that's one thing that really irritates me. Like, if you're supposed, whatever Neil wants to classify himself as, if he's like a fucking genius or whatever caliber of intelligence he claims to have.
Yeah.
If you're that smart, at a certain point, you have to be able to be smart enough to see some fractions of possible interesting points, whether or not they're true or not. Like, in my opinion, you should still be able to be like, okay, that's a really interesting theory, and possibly this is how it could maybe be actually true, not just shit on literally everything.
Yeah, because I know exactly like how Neil deGrasse Tyson would respond to him. And he would have been smug and condescending and basically said, you're a fucking moron and don't call me again.
Yeah.
Which is just the wrong way to handle it. Like Joe said, you're an educator. Educate. Like, don't be an asshole.
Exactly.
You know,
a Neil deGrasse asshole.
You know, the last time we played a video about him, he was talking about girls basketball, men playing in girls basketball. It's like, we really need you for that. Like, why don't you help this guy out and maybe you could talk to Black America about science a bit? Because Black America believes some wacky shit.
Not a bad point.
Black Twitter believes some wacky shit. Maybe you could ingrain yourself into your culture and maybe help a little bit. Why don't you figure out how you two can work together? Even though you don't believe in his wacky theory, what does that mean that you guys can't work together to get people into a classroom to learn about space? Because it seems like somebody with a bigger reach and as much fame as Terrence Howard has, that would be a great opportunity for somebody like Neil to get into some urban neighborhoods and teach people about space.
Neil, I digress, Tyson.
Yeah, fuck you. What a dickhead. One of the other things I wanted to play this video real quick. He talked a lot about the Michelson-Morley experiment that disproved the ether and that proved that we live in a vacuum, essentially. And I didn't do a ton of looking into this, but Ashton Forbes kind of dug into it, and he put out a really interesting video. So here's this video.
So here's the setup. It's a very simple setup. There's a laser. There's a mirror here reflecting it.
Ashton Forbes is the MH370 guy, by the way.
So we spin around horizontally. There's nothing happening here in the fringe. I don't know if the sound is on. So you shift it 360 degrees, spinning around. Absolutely nothing happens. The interference pattern stays exactly right there. It doesn't move. So you could argue that this is equivalent to Michelson-Morley, where they looked at it, they did their experiment, and they realized, oh, the interference pattern is not moving. So this means that there must not be an ether. You should detect some disturbance if there's an ether. So they switch it around. And then he says, okay, well, what if we don't do it horizontally? What if we do it vertically? Now, why is vertically important? Because there's more gravity at the surface of the Earth than there is above. Now, in this case of this experiment, the difference in the gravity between the top and the bottom is basically negligible.
Yeah, nothing.
Because it's just not that far of a distance. So I wouldn't expect there to be a major difference here. But what happens? Look at it. Boom. It's moving. It's moving a lot.
Now, if I'm Terrence Howard,
look at that.
I think I'm going to say that there's a pressure differential.
Yeah.
Top to bottom. There's going to be more pressure,
look at
in
that.
one area than
look
the
at
other.
That movement.
I don't know. Again, like I didn't look into the experiment too difficult.
Why is that happening?
Or too much, but I thought that was interesting. That clearly there is a moving interference pattern when you do it.
And so it actually
vertically.
stops at 2 points, and then he shows it because you can actually see it goes one way and then it goes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting it's an interesting thing. Like again, I don't have anything to say about that except that it's interesting. I mean,
for sure, yeah. I
don't
curious.
understand how you could prove that we live in a void from Earth. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I was thinking about that as he was playing this, and then I was like, "Yeah, maybe I should have read the experiment."
Wait a second, you're trying to prove the void while we're in the void?
Yeah, because they did it before
second.
they could go into space. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't know. All right, we've got a couple more minutes. I've got 3 more videos. Let's just watch this one, and then we'll do the cop. Do you want to do cop videos or financial video?
Oh man, fuck. Shit. I don't can whichever one we don't, can we do on the next one then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, let's go cop.
They're all so good.
Yeah.
Let's do the cops?
Yeah.
All right, let's do the cops. So I've been, as you know, I've been on a kick of watching cop videos, and there's just some really gnarly stuff out there. And this is why you should go and help whoever's going to be, destroyed by the state. Here's our friendly neighborhood policing service. This guy's a trainer. He goes around and trains law enforcement about how to best protect and serve the people that they work for.
If you fully prepare yourself, in most cases, killing is just not that big a deal. For a mature warrior who's prepared themselves mind, body, and spirit for a lifetime, For a mature warrior who's killing somebody represents a clear and present danger to others, it's just not that big a deal. There's no wrong way to respond to killing. There's many ways people respond, and they're all the same. They're all okay.
They're all okay.
But if you could choose how you responded, I think you'd want to feel good about it, yeah? The satisfaction of hitting the target under the stress of combat, to do what you're trained to do, to stop a deadly force threat, to save lives, to save your own life. Something called survival euphoria. It feels real good. Some people feel bad, they don't feel bad, yeah?
Yeah.
Some people feel bad, they feel good about it, yeah?
Look at how good he feels. God, what a psycho. My goodness, could you imagine? Like, your job is supposed to be to protect people.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with policing, is they look at us as the enemy. It is us versus you, and I'm going to do everything I have to in my power to go home tonight. And if that means you die, you die. You know, I saw a video the other day where this old woman, and now we have to fucking order a sign for my grandmother's house. This old woman called and thought somebody was like in a gunfight in her front yard, essentially. And she answered the door, and she had her arm behind her back, and the cop's like, "Hey, what do you got back there?" She's like, "Nothing." "Yeah, come on, what do you got back there?" And she goes like this, and it's a steak knife, and he shoots her, and he killed her.
Jesus.
So now it's like, fuck, man. Another one I saw where this woman calls and says her husband shot her in the head. So the cops show up, and she's sitting on the porch with no gunshot wound to her head. And they knock on the door. The husband comes out and is like, "I'm not fucking doing it." And they tased him and beat the shit out of him. And he had a seizure and died. Yeah. Protect and serve. But that's
Dude,
not the best one. This is probably the most fun. Go ahead. What are you going to say?
I'm pretty sure they had to remove to protect and serve from all the police vehicles in California because they determined that was not actually their job.
Yeah.
And it was false advertisement, you know? And then on the video, that guy, he's, you know, saying if you're a mature warrior and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, you're not a fucking warrior. You're supposed to be
a civil servant.
Yes, thank you. A civil servant. Yes, you're not a fucking warrior. And
I mean, yeah, this isn't Afghanistan, man. You're gone from there. And it's amazing, like, some of these cops who, like, there's one of these guys that I've been watching his shit. He was in Afghanistan, and then he came back and became a cop, and he's like, we're more brutal to people here than we were in Afghanistan. He's like, it's not even close. He's like, we were required to do certain things when people were injured or we killed somebody, like right away. Like, you're required to give people medical care immediately. And there's just endless videos of these cops just tasing people, beating the hell out of people, and just tossing them into the back of a cop car and letting them sit there for 2 hours instead of taking them to the hospital. You know, there was multiple people where they hogtie these people that are getting rowdy and don't want to get arrested. And a lot of times they aren't even doing anything. It's like, stop resisting. And now all of a sudden, what were they arrested for? Resisting arrest. It's like, well, there has to be another. Resisting is a secondary charge, but all these people end up going to jail for fucking resisting arrest. And they hogtie them and throw them in the back of these vans, and then they take them on joyrides and they break their necks and kill them. It's just disgusting what they do. But this one here takes the cake.
What? Let's go. Wait, right there?
All right. I don't know. My legs went numb for a second. I heard a pop come from.
Go this way. Can you move?
Yeah.
We hold our officers to a very high standard of service. And this particular time, we let the public down.
This time.
Okaloosa County Sheriff Eric Aiden, in this video posted to social media, speaking on the incident of November 12th, 2023. While on a call with a suspect in the back seat, then Okaloosa County Deputy Jesse Hernandez reportedly claimed it was this noise that he thought was the detained suspect shooting at him.
Shots fired!
He's army rolling.
Shots fired!
Hernandez and Okaloosa County
then they
Sheriff
just
Sergeant
fucking
Beth Roberts, who was on the
magged 'em.
scene,
They
both
magged 'em.
shot into the patrol car. The detained person in the
man.
back seat was reportedly not
Unbelievable.
physically injured. Officials say he was fully searched before he was put into the patrol car and
Hands
after
behind
the
his
incident,
back.
but
I hope-
he
I
was
watched
found to
this
be
whole
unarmed.
video.
The
I
noise
hope they paid
was
him
reported to
and
be an
freaking-
acorn. Hernandez resigned just weeks later.
We have an obligation to our staff to try and train them the best we can so that they can go home unharmed to their
Yeah,
families.
see?
But
Us
we
versus
have
you.
just as equally and just as important of an obligation to our public. Even if they're being investigated for a felony crime, we have that same obligation to protect them.
In a recently released 44-page report of an internal investigation,
Yeah.
it states Hernandez used excessive force. But for
You
Roberts,
think?
Jesse, how are you? Okay.
the report stated her
thought he was
response was
shot.
in an effort to save Hernandez's life and that her response was reasonable. Sheriff
don't
Aiden
worry.
offered his apologies to the man who was in the patrol car.
We are so grateful and prayerful and thankful that he was not injured.
No,
In
you're
Okaloosa
not.
County,
You
Claire
give a
Jones,
shit.
News Channel
Physically,
7.
Yeah, dude,
there was
they don't
emotional
care
damage
because they have qualified immunity. They don't give a fuck, man. There's just endless videos of guys being like, "Hey, man, this is against my First, Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment rights. At this point, you are knowingly depriving me of my civil rights, and your qualified immunity can be stripped." And they just go, "Yeah, I don't give a shit. I'm going to sue you. I don't care." Because they don't.
Yeah.
They never have to suffer any consequences for this shit. It's just unbelievable to me. This guy, a fucking acorn falls, and all of a sudden he's in Nam.
That was
It's
an
just
acorn?
disgusting.
That was a fucking acorn?
It was an acorn, dude. An acorn fell on the roof of the car.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so first of all, I mean, I know you've heard shit outside where you're like, that might have been a gunshot, or
Never.
actual
Never.
actual
I have
gunshots.
never mistaken something for a gunshot. Never.
Well, I mean,
Even living in San Francisco, like, you know gunshots, dude.
No, for
Like,
sure. I'm saying
you've been around gunshots.
I know, but I'm saying maybe out here in Montana where there's, a lot of big tractor shit and stuff going on. There every once in a while I'll hear something, and not saying that I think it is, but you hear things sometimes where you stop and you're like, was that a gunshot? But for sure, especially
But you
a
don't
trained
jump to the ground and
Yeah,
roll
yeah.
around
No,
like you're
that's what
trying
I'm-
out for Red Dawn.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. A trained, mature warrior, should be able to gather his senses a little bit enough. And then not only that, but the chick, all the guy does is like point, and she's like there, and then they just mag dump. Like, come on.
And
without
don't worry,
any
Nolan.
visual.
They investigated themselves
Internally.
and they found that she was in the right.
They investigated
Yeah,
her internally.
We don't even have to show you the investigations anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was deep.
What a fucking
It was deep.
joke. On that, let's get the fuck out of here.
Oh.
We'll listen to this idiot make a fool out of himself about money next week. Good night.